Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the Islamic SHAHADA channel. Russia, the largest country in the world, spanning over 17 million square kilometers and stretching across 11 time zones, is often associated with vast tundras, dense Siberian forests, the mighty Volga River, and the historic grandeur of Moscow and St. Petersburg. Its cultural and political identity has long been shaped by Orthodox Christianity, which has played a central role in Russian history, statecraft, and national symbolism. Palaces, cathedrals, and monasteries throughout the country stand as testaments to centuries of Christian influence. Yet, amid these familiar narratives, a less recognized but equally significant reality exists. Russia is home to the largest Muslim population in Europe and Central Asia. By 2025, estimates suggest that between 14 and 16 million Muslims reside across Russia, representing roughly 10.9% of the total population. These figures position Russia not just as a European nation with a Muslim minority, but as a central hub of Islamic culture, education, and spiritual life in a vast geographic region. The Muslim population is diverse, encompassing Tatars, Bashkirs, Chechens, Ingush, and Dagestanis, alongside smaller communities and an increasing number of ethnic Russians who have embraced Islam. This diversity illustrates a unique synthesis of ethnic, cultural, and religious identities that has persisted despite centuries of political and social change. The visibility of Islam in Russia is striking. From the soaring minarets and majestic domes of the Moscow Cathedral Mosque, which reopened in 2015 as a symbol of Muslim heritage in the capital, to the historic Kul Sharif Mosque in Kazan, Islam's presence is tangible and celebrated. Across Tatarstan, Bashkortostan, and the North Caucasus, streets, markets, and schools reflect Islamic traditions woven into daily life. During Eid al-Fitr and al-Adha, communities gather for prayers, feasts, and cultural festivals that attract people from diverse ethnic and religious backgrounds, emphasizing Islam's enduring social role. Beyond architecture and festivals, Islam actively shapes multiple facets of Russian society. Politically, Muslim leaders play key roles in regional governance, particularly in areas such as Chechnya and Tatarstan, influencing policy, diplomacy, and interfaith relations. Economically, the halal sector, including food production, banking, and tourism, is growing, reflecting both domestic demand and Russia's connections with the global Muslim market. Educationally, institutions like Kazan Islamic University and networks of madrasas provide formal and spiritual learning, producing scholars, imams, and community leaders who sustain Islamic knowledge and practice across generations. The story of Islam in Russia is not only one of numbers or structures, it is a narrative of resilience, adaptation, and integration. From the peaceful adoption of Islam in Volga Bulgaria in the 10th century to the survival of Muslim identity under the pressures of Soviet atheism, and now in a post-Soviet multicultural society, Russian Muslims have navigated historical challenges while maintaining vibrant cultural, religious, and social traditions. This opening sets the stage for a journey through Russia's Islamic world, a landscape where faith intersects with politics, education, and culture, and where the stories of communities, ancient and modern, reflect both continuity and transformation. In a country often defined by its Orthodox Christian identity, Islam emerges not as a peripheral phenomenon, but as a central dynamic force shaping the present and future of Russia, affirming its status as the largest Islamic center in Europe and Central Asia. Islam's arrival in the territory now known as Russia is a story that stretches back over a millennium, reflecting the complex interplay of trade, politics, and culture. The earliest documented presence of Islam occurred in Volga Bulgaria, a medieval state located along the banks of the Volga and Kama rivers, in the 10th century. At that time, Volga Bulgaria was a vibrant, multi-ethnic trading hub strategically positioned between the east and the west, facilitating exchanges with Baghdad, Constantinople, and even distant Scandinavian territories. In 922 CE, Volga Bulgaria formally adopted Islam as its state religion, making it one of the earliest regions in the broader European and Eurasian context to embrace Islam in an official capacity. This adoption predated the Christianization of Kievan Rus, which took place in 988 and occurred largely peacefully, emphasizing tolerance and accommodation. The local rulers and communities adhered primarily to the Hanafi school of Sunni Islamic jurisprudence, known for its flexibility and pragmatic approach to law, which allowed for the integration of Islamic principles with existing local traditions and customs. The spread of Islam in Volga Bulgaria was not limited to religion alone. It significantly shaped society, governance, and trade. Cities such as Bulgar and later Kazan became symbolic centers of Islamic civilization, known for their architectural achievements, scholarship, and cultural vibrancy. Bulgar, in particular, was renowned as a center of learning, attracting scholars and traders from across the Muslim world. Pilgrimages to Mecca, known as Hajj, were undertaken by Bulgar elites, underscoring the region's religious connectedness to the broader Islamic world. Following the Mongol invasions in the 13th century, the Volga region, like much of Eurasia, experienced profound political upheaval. Despite these disruptions, the Islamic legacy endured. Muslim communities maintained religious practices, legal traditions, and educational structures even under Mongol and later Russian rule. By the 16th century, the Khanate of Kazan, a successor state to Volga Bulgaria, was conquered by the expanding Russian Tsardom under Ivan IV, the Terrible. Although military conquest brought political subjugation, Islam remained resilient, continuing to flourish among Tatars, Bashkirs, and other Muslim groups in the region. Beyond the Volga and Ural regions, Islam also established strong roots in the North Caucasus, including Chechnya, Dagestan, and Ingushetia. These areas became home to distinct ethnic Muslim communities that preserved rich oral traditions, clan-based social structures, and local interpretations of Islamic law and custom. Similarly, Islamic practices spread into Bashkortostan and Siberia, often blending with indigenous beliefs and forming unique cultural expressions that distinguish these communities from their counterparts in Central Asia or the Middle East. The spread of Islam in Russia was not only a religious phenomenon, but also a marker of cultural resilience and identity. Across centuries of political upheaval, including the expansion of the Russian Empire and later Soviet anti-religious campaigns, Muslim communities retained their faith, built mosques, and cultivated educational institutions. These historical foundations laid the groundwork for modern Islam in Russia, a faith that today thrives in urban centers, rural communities, and culturally diverse regions, reflecting a heritage that is both deeply historical and dynamically evolving. As of 2025, Russia stands as home to one of the largest Muslim populations in both Europe and Central Asia, with estimates ranging between 14 and 20 million people. This represents approximately 10 to 14% of Russia's total population of 146 million, a figure that highlights Islam not as a marginal faith, but as a central and enduring component of Russian society. While Orthodox Christianity remains the dominant religion, Islam is the country's second-largest faith and continues to expand in demographic, cultural, and political significance. The geographic distribution of Muslims within Russia is highly concentrated in specific regions. The Republic of Tatarstan and the Republic of Bashkortostan, located in the Volga-Ural region, each host sizable Muslim populations that trace their faith back to Volga Bulgaria's adoption of Islam in the 10th century. In these regions, Tatars and Bashkirs form the majority of the Muslim community. Their societies are often characterized by a blend of Islamic faith with local traditions, producing a cultural synthesis that has endured for centuries. Mosques dot the landscape of cities like Kazan and Ufa, while Islamic schools and cultural centers play a vital role in preserving identity. In the North Caucasus, Islam is even more deeply rooted and visible. Republics such as Dagestan, Chechnya, and Ingushetia are overwhelmingly Muslim, with Islam woven into the very fabric of daily life. In Dagestan, where dozens of ethnic groups coexist, Islam provides a unifying identity amidst linguistic and cultural diversity. Chechnya, having undergone decades of conflict and subsequent reconstruction, now sees Islam as both a source of resilience and a pillar of political legitimacy under regional leadership. In Ingushetia and neighboring republics, Islamic traditions continue to guide family structures, social relations, and public celebrations, particularly during Ramadan and Eid. Yet, Russia's Muslim population is not confined to its historical heartlands. In Moscow and other major urban centers, Muslims, both from native ethnic groups and from Central Asian migrant communities, form significant minorities. Moscow alone is believed to be home to over 2 million Muslims, making it the largest Muslim-majority city in Europe by population. Here, the demographic diversity becomes especially evident. Tatars, Chechens, Dagestanis, Uzbeks, Kyrgyz, and Tajiks pray side by side in mosques, forming a cosmopolitan blend that reflects Russia's complex demographic mosaic. One of the striking features of Islam in Russia today is its ethnic diversity. The largest groups include the Tatars, who make up nearly half of Russia's Muslim population. Here, the demographic diversity becomes especially evident. Tatars, Chechens, Dagestanis, Uzbeks, Kyrgyz, and Tajiks pray side by side in mosques, forming a cosmopolitan blend that reflects Russia's complex demographic mosaic. One of the striking features of Islam in Russia today is its ethnic diversity. The largest groups include the Tatars, who make up nearly half of Russia's Muslim population. Historically influential as traders, scholars, and statesmen, Tatars continue to play an important role in shaping Russian Islam's identity. Bashkirs, another Turkic-speaking people, maintain strong cultural traditions tied to their Islamic heritage. In the Caucasus, Chechens, Dagestanis, and Ingush represent distinct ethnic groups, each with their own language and customs, yet bound together by Islam as a shared framework of identity. Beyond these, dozens of smaller groups, from Karachais to Nogais to Kumiks, contribute to the country's Islamic diversity. Adding another dimension to this demographic landscape is the phenomenon of conversion to Islam among ethnic Russians. By 2025, scholars estimate that between 50,000 and 70,000 ethnic Russians have embraced Islam, often inspired by personal spiritual quests, marriages, or exposure to Muslim communities. Conversion is most visible in urban centers, such as Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Kazan, where social and cultural interaction across religious lines is frequent. While still a minority, this growing group demonstrates that Islam in Russia is not confined to ethnic boundaries, but is actively reshaping spiritual identities across the country. Migration also plays a crucial role in diversifying Russia's Muslim population. Millions of migrant workers from predominantly Muslim countries such as Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Azerbaijan reside in Russia, particularly in large cities. These migrants bolster the demographic weight of Muslims in urban areas, often forming new communities that blend their Central Asian traditions with the existing Islamic practices of local populations. While their presence has at times sparked social tensions, they also contribute significantly to Russia's economy and highlight the transnational dimension of Islam in the country. The cultural imprint of Islam in Russia is profound, visible not only in its spiritual life but also in its art, architecture, cuisine, and everyday traditions. For centuries, Muslim communities have shaped Russia's identity alongside Orthodox Christianity, leaving behind a cultural legacy that continues to flourish in 2025. Perhaps the most striking symbols of Islamic presence in Russia are its mosques. Monuments that blend spirituality with artistic sophistication. The Moscow Cathedral Mosque, often referred to as the main mosque of Russia, is among the largest in Europe. Originally built in 1904 and reconstructed in 2015, it now accommodates over 10,000 worshippers. Its golden domes, turquoise minarets, and intricate calligraphy symbolize both the resilience of Russian Islam and its modern revival. During Friday prayers and major Islamic festivals, the mosque becomes a hub of activity, drawing worshippers from across Moscow's diverse Muslim communities, from Tatars to Dagestanis to Central Asian migrants. In Kazan, the capital of Tatarstan, the Kul Sharif Mosque stands as a masterpiece of modern Islamic architecture and a symbol of Tatar pride. Reconstructed on the site of a mosque destroyed during Ivan the Terrible's conquest of Kazan in the 16th century, the Kul Sharif was completed in 2005 as both a functioning mosque and a cultural landmark. With its elegant blue and white minarets and spacious prayer halls, it represents the revival of Tatar Islamic identity in the post-Soviet era. The mosque is not only a religious center, but also a cultural beacon, frequently visited by tourists and scholars eager to learn about Tatar Islamic heritage. Even older is the Juma Mosque in Derbent, Dagestan, which is recognized as one of the oldest surviving mosques in Russia and the entire former Soviet Union. Built in the 8th century, the mosque is a testament to the deep historical roots of Islam in the Caucasus. Its stone walls and tranquil courtyards speak of centuries of devotion, resilience, and continuity, linking modern Russian Muslims with the earliest generations of believers in the region. The mosque has been carefully preserved and remains a UNESCO World Heritage Site, underscoring the global significance of Russia's Islamic heritage. Beyond mosques, Islam's influence on Russian culture is vividly expressed in festivals and public celebrations. Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha are not only religious milestones, but also cultural events that bring together entire communities. In Tatarstan and Bashkortostan, these holidays are marked with large public prayers, traditional music, and communal feasts. Families gather to share meals, exchange gifts, and uphold customs that blend local traditions with Islamic practices. In the North Caucasus, Eid celebrations often include horseback competitions, folk dances, and poetry recitations, reflecting the fusion of Islamic faith with regional cultural heritage. In Moscow, city authorities now recognize and accommodate Eid prayers, with streets near major mosques often filled with tens of thousands of worshippers, illustrating Islam's growing visibility in Russia's urban landscape. Culinary traditions also bear the imprint of Islam, particularly in Muslim-majority regions. In Tatarstan, echpochmak, a triangular pastry filled with meat and potatoes, is a beloved dish, while chak-chak, a sweet made of fried dough soaked in honey, is a beloved dish in honey, is often served at weddings and festivals. In the Caucasus, variations of pilaf are staples, reflecting both Islamic dietary traditions and cross-cultural exchanges along historic trade routes. These foods are not merely meals, but cultural markers that tell the story of centuries of interaction between Islam and Russian society. Halal food production has also become a booming industry, with Russia emerging as one of the largest suppliers of halal meat to global markets, further linking faith with economy and culture. The cultural influence of Islam extends to literature, music, and art. Tatar poets such as Gabdullah Tukay and Bashkir writers like Mustay Karim drew inspiration from Islamic ethics and heritage, weaving faith into Russian literary traditions. In the North Caucasus, epic poetry and oral storytelling often celebrate Islamic virtues of honor, hospitality, and resilience. In music, traditional instruments like the Karai of the Bashkirs or the Balaban of the Caucasus accompany songs and rituals tied to both local identity and Islamic values. The story of Islam in Russia cannot be told without recognizing the central role of education. From the earliest days of Volga Bulgaria to the present, Islamic scholarship and institutions have been crucial in preserving faith, shaping identity, and connecting Russian Muslims with the broader Islamic world. Historically, madrasas, traditional centers of Islamic learning, were the backbone of Muslim education in Russia. As early as the 14th and 15th centuries, Tatar and Bashkir communities established madrasas that taught Quran, Arabic, Islamic jurisprudence, and theology, alongside subjects like mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. These institutions ensured that even under the pressures of empire and later Soviet anti-religious policies, the intellectual foundations of Islam remained intact. Cities like Kazan, Ufa, and Orenburg became renowned for their Islamic schools, producing generations of scholars who guided their communities through turbulent times. In the post-Soviet era, Islamic education underwent a remarkable revival. Institutions such as Kazan Islamic University, founded in 1998, and Moscow Islamic University, established in 1999, stand today as symbols of this resurgence. Kazan Islamic University, situated in the heart of Tatarstan, combines traditional Islamic studies with modern academic disciplines, preparing students not only for religious leadership, but also for roles in education, law, and social service. Moscow Islamic University, with its proximity to political and cultural centers, emphasizes interfaith dialogue, religious scholarship, and integration into broader Russian society. Both universities attract students from across Russia and neighboring regions, reflecting the growing demand for Islamic education that is both rooted in tradition and relevant to contemporary challenges. Beyond universities, madrasas and secondary-level Islamic schools have multiplied across regions like Dagestan, Chechnya, Bashkortostan, and Tatarstan. These institutions are not limited to theology alone. Many incorporate Russian and international curricula, blending religious knowledge with practical education. In Dagestan, for example, madrasas often serve as community centers, where young people learn Arabic, Quranic recitation, and Islamic ethics, while also receiving general education that equips them for modern life. Central to the organization of Islamic education and religious life is the Spiritual Administration of Muslims of Russia, DUM-RF. This umbrella organization coordinates Islamic institutions, manages mosques, oversees religious publications, and represents the Muslim community in official matters. Under its leadership, major Islamic conferences and Quran recitation competitions are held annually, fostering unity and intellectual engagement among Russia's diverse Muslim population. Importantly, DUM-RF also promotes interfaith dialogue, particularly with the Russian Orthodox Church, seeking to strengthen social cohesion in a country where religion often intersects with politics and cultural identity. Russia is also home to numerous Islamic publishing houses and media platforms, which play a vital role in religious education. Journals, websites, and television programs broadcast discussions on Islamic law, ethics, and culture to millions of Muslims across the Federation. In Kazan and Grozny, Islamic publishing thrives, translating classical works into Russian and Tatar, ensuring accessibility to a wider audience. These efforts have expanded the reach of Islamic thought beyond mosques and classrooms, embedding it into daily life through literature, digital media, and community initiatives. Equally significant is the state's relationship with Islamic institutions. The Russian government, recognizing Islam as one of the country's traditional religions, supports certain educational initiatives while also maintaining oversight. This partnership is often delicate, balancing the autonomy of Islamic institutions with state security concerns. Nevertheless, Islamic universities and madrasas continue to function as key sites of religious scholarship and as gateways for young Muslims seeking identity, moral guidance, and social belonging. Islam in Russia today extends far beyond the boundaries of faith and culture. It plays a visible and often strategic role in both domestic politics and international diplomacy. With an estimated 14 to 20 million Muslims, Russia cannot treat Islam as a marginal force. Instead, it has become a key component of the state's multi-ethnic governance model and a bridge to the wider Muslim world. At the forefront of this political and diplomatic engagement is Grand Mufti Sheikh Rawil Gainuddin, the head of the spiritual administration of Muslims of Russia. As one of the most recognized Muslim leaders in the country, Gainuddin serves as a symbolic and practical link between the Russian state and its Muslim communities. He regularly attends national events, sits on interfaith councils, and maintains open dialogue with the Russian Orthodox Church. Internationally, Gainuddin acts as a diplomatic envoy, representing Russian Muslims at global Islamic conferences and fostering relations with countries such as Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and members of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC. His role demonstrates how Islamic leadership in Russia is integrated into the broader machinery of state diplomacy, where religion becomes both a cultural asset and a tool of foreign policy. This intertwining of Islam and politics is particularly evident in Russia's outreach to the Muslim world. Facing Western sanctions and shifting geopolitical alignments, Moscow increasingly turns to Muslim-majority nations for economic and political partnerships. In this context, Russia presents itself not only as a great power, but also as a country where Islam is a traditional religion, deeply rooted in its history. By highlighting its sizable Muslim population, Russia builds credibility in its diplomatic efforts with countries in the Middle East, Central Asia, and Africa. This narrative helps Moscow frame itself as a bridge between Europe and the Islamic world, a nation where coexistence between Christianity and Islam is part of the national story. Domestically, the political significance of Islam is most visible in regions with large Muslim populations. In Chechnya, for example, Ramzan Kadyrov, the region's leader, wields immense power. Though controversial, Kadyrov embodies the intersection of Islam, local governance, and federal politics. His administration promotes Islamic identity in public life, funding mosques, sponsoring Quran competitions, and implementing cultural policies rooted in Islamic tradition while maintaining loyalty to Moscow. Chechnya, once scarred by wars of separatism, has been reshaped into a region where Islamic identity is officially encouraged but firmly aligned with Russian state interests. Similarly, in Tatarstan, Muslim leadership plays an influential role in shaping governance and identity. The republic balances strong regional pride with cooperation with the Kremlin. Leaders in Kazan frequently emphasize Tatarstan's role as a model of peaceful coexistence between Muslims and Orthodox Christians, highlighting the republic's cultural autonomy and its significance as a center of Islamic education and heritage. Tatarstan's government also uses its Islamic identity in diplomacy, particularly in building cultural and economic ties with Turkey and other Turkic-speaking Muslim countries. The broader North Caucasus and Volga regions also illustrate the deep integration of Islam into local governance. In Dagestan, Ingushetia, and Bashkortostan, Muslim leaders act as mediators between the state and communities, helping to manage social tensions, prevent extremism, and promote local development. Their involvement in governance highlights how Islam in Russia is not only a matter of personal belief, but also a mechanism of political representation and regional stability. This integration, however, is carefully balanced. The Russian state supports Islamic institutions and leaders who align with its policies, while remaining wary of independent movements that could challenge federal authority. This delicate arrangement reflects a broader Russian strategy to embrace Islam as a stabilizing and legitimizing force while ensuring it remains under state guidance. The economic role of Muslims in Russia is both historic and dynamic, reflecting their contributions across a wide spectrum of industries and their growing influence in modern markets. From traditional trades and agriculture to construction and the emerging halal sector, Muslims are not only participants in the Russian economy, but also drivers of growth, innovation, and international cooperation. At the most fundamental level, Muslim communities are heavily represented in agriculture, construction, transport, and trade, sectors that sustain Russia's economy at both regional and national levels. In republics such as Dagestan, Chechnya, Tatarstan, and Bashkortostan, agricultural production is central to local livelihoods, with Muslim farmers contributing to livestock rearing, grain cultivation, and dairy production. Halal livestock farming, in particular, has expanded in recent years, aligning economic activity with religious values and giving local producers a competitive edge in Muslim consumer markets. In urban centers, especially Moscow and St. Petersburg, Muslim workers are a vital force in the construction and transportation industries. Here, labor migrants from Central Asian countries such as Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan play a significant role. Numbering in the millions, these migrants, most of them Muslim, provide the workforce that builds Russia's infrastructure, powers its service sector, and maintains the daily functioning of its largest cities. Their contribution is not only economic, but also demographic, as their presence has transformed the cultural fabric of Russian urban life, making Islam increasingly visible in the heart of the Federation. One of the most significant emerging areas of Muslim economic influence is the halal industry. Globally, halal products, ranging from food and beverages to cosmetics and pharmaceuticals, represent a rapidly growing market, estimated at over $2 trillion annually. Russia, with its sizable Muslim population and geographic position straddling Europe and Asia, is uniquely placed to tap into this sector. In recent years, halal certification bodies have expanded, and local producers have sought recognition in domestic and international markets. The Moscow Halal Expo, held annually, has become a showcase for Russia's halal sector, drawing businesses, investors, and policymakers from across the Muslim world. Tatarstan, in particular, has positioned itself as a halal hub within Russia, with Kazan hosting international forums on Islamic finance and halal trade. These events highlight not only the commercial opportunities, but also the cultural affirmation that comes with linking economic development to Islamic values. The halal food industry within Russia itself is growing rapidly. Supermarkets in major cities now stock halal meat, dairy, and packaged goods, catering not only to Muslim consumers but also to a wider audience seeking ethically sourced products. This shift demonstrates the mainstreaming of Muslim economic activity in Russia, where halal is no longer seen as a niche market but as part of a broader trend toward quality assurance and ethical consumption. Beyond food, there is growing interest in Islamic finance, another pillar of Muslim economic contribution. Although still in its early stages in Russia, Islamic banking and finance have begun to attract attention from policymakers and entrepreneurs alike. Pilot projects in Tatarstan and Dagestan explore Sharia-compliant financial instruments, which prohibit interest and speculative practices while emphasizing risk-sharing and ethical investment. If developed further, Islamic finance could provide Russia with new tools to attract investment from the Gulf and Southeast Asia, regions where Islamic banking is already well established. The contributions of Muslims to Russia's economy are not limited to labor and halal industries. Many Muslim entrepreneurs, particularly from Tatar and Bashkir communities, are active in trade, manufacturing, and technology. Their businesses link Russia to global markets, especially in Central Asia, Turkey, and the Middle East. This role is increasingly important as Russia pivots toward non-Western economies, seeking stronger ties with Muslim-majority countries. Altogether, the economic footprint of Muslims in Russia illustrates a dual reality. They are both deeply integrated into the country's economic system and simultaneously strengthening their cultural and religious identity through commerce. Whether through building skyscrapers in Moscow, farming the fertile lands of Tatarstan, or exporting halal meat to the Middle East, Muslim contributions reinforce the notion that Islam is not only a spiritual presence in Russia, but also an economic force shaping the nation's future. Despite the growing visibility and contributions of Muslims in Russia, the community continues to face a complex set of social challenges that affect integration, identity, and national cohesion. These challenges stem not only from religious differences, but also from the intersection of ethnicity, migration, and geopolitics. One of the most pressing issues is Islamophobia and stereotyping. Although Islam is officially recognized as one of Russia's traditional religions, many Muslims encounter prejudice in their daily lives. Media narratives sometimes portray Muslims, particularly those from Central Asia, as outsiders or as security risks. Such stereotypes contribute to discrimination in housing, education, and employment, disproportionately affecting labor migrants and ethnic minorities. For example, Tajik and Uzbek migrants, who form a large portion of the urban workforce in construction and services, often report being subjected to police profiling, random document checks, and barriers to legal protections. The issue of security has been especially sensitive in the wake of recent attacks. In March 2024, a terrorist assault at a concert venue near Moscow claimed more than 130 lives, marking one of the deadliest attacks in Russia in decades. While responsibility was claimed by extremist groups, the incident reignited national debates about migration, radicalization, and religious freedom. In the public imagination, such tragedies often become unfairly linked to Islam as a whole, intensifying suspicion toward ordinary Muslims who reject extremism entirely. The government's response has emphasized stricter migration controls and law enforcement measures. New policies in 2024 to 2025 tightened requirements for work permits and residency, expanded biometric data collection for foreign workers, and increased police surveillance in public spaces. While officials justify these measures as essential for national security, human rights organizations warn that they risk alienating entire communities. The burden often falls on peaceful Muslim migrants and long-established communities, deepening the sense of marginalization. At the same time, the Russian state seeks to preserve the image of a multi-ethnic and multi-religious federation. Leaders, including President Vladimir Putin, have repeatedly stressed the historical role of Muslims in Russia and the need for unity against external threats. The government maintains strong ties with Muslim-majority regions such as Tatarstan and Chechnya, where local leaders, like Chechen head Ramzan Kadyrov and Tatarstan's leadership, play influential roles in both domestic stability and international diplomacy. These regions demonstrate how Islam can coexist with Russian governance structures while maintaining distinct cultural and religious identities. Integration, however, remains uneven. For younger generations of Russian Muslims, especially Tatars, Bashkirs, and North Caucasians, religion serves not only as a spiritual anchor, but also as a marker of cultural pride in a society where they sometimes feel sidelined. Meanwhile, for migrant Muslims from Central Asia, integration is hindered by language barriers, economic inequality, and limited access to social services. Despite this, many of these communities are actively contributing to Russian society through small businesses, halal food industries, and religious institutions, gradually reshaping the cultural landscape of major cities. Balancing security with cultural and religious rights is the ongoing challenge. On one hand, the government faces legitimate concerns about extremism and public safety. On the other, heavy-handed security policies can foster resentment and undermine integration efforts. Religious leaders such as Grand Mufti Sheikh Rawil Ghainudin emphasize that Islam should be seen as part of Russia's historical and cultural fabric, not as a foreign import. They advocate for greater interfaith dialogue, fair representation, and community-driven initiatives to counter both radicalization and prejudice. Looking ahead, the trajectory of Islam in Russia is shaped by powerful demographic and social dynamics that will redefine the country's future. As of 2025, Muslims account for an estimated 14 to 16 million people, roughly 10 to 12% of the population. However, demographic projections suggest that this proportion will rise significantly over the coming decades, positioning Islam as one of the defining elements of Russia's identity in the 21st century. The most important factor behind this growth is the higher birth rate among Muslim communities compared to the national average. Regions such as Chechnya, Dagestan, and Ingushetia consistently report fertility rates well above those in Slavic majority areas like Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Central Russia. This natural demographic momentum means that over time, the share of Muslims in the national population will steadily increase, even without significant migration. Migration from Central Asia adds another dimension to this shift. Millions of workers from Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan already form the backbone of Russia's construction, agriculture, and service industries. With Russia facing labor shortages due to declining native populations, this migration flow is expected to continue, if not expand. By 2050, analysts project that Muslims could constitute 20 to 30% of Russia's population, and some estimates even suggest closer to one-third if current fertility and migration patterns persist. This demographic transformation is not merely statistical, it carries profound cultural, economic, and political implications. Socially, the increasing presence of Muslims will challenge Russia to redefine its national identity. For centuries, Russian identity has been anchored in Orthodox Christianity, Slavic heritage, and Eurasian geopolitical positioning. As Islam becomes more visible and influential, the state will need to balance these traditions with the multicultural and multi-religious fabric of its population. Whether this leads to greater inclusivity or heightened tensions will depend largely on how both state institutions and civil society manage interethnic relations. Politically, the growing Muslim population will likely translate into greater representation and influence. Already, Muslim leaders in Tatarstan, Bashkortostan, and the North Caucasus hold considerable sway in regional governance. As demographic weight increases, calls for fairer political inclusion at the federal level will become louder. This could result in more Muslim voices in the State Duma, increased influence in policymaking, and greater involvement in shaping national debates around migration, religious freedom, and foreign policy. Internationally, Russia's diplomatic ties with the Muslim world may deepen further. Moscow already positions itself as a bridge between East and West, with strong partnerships in the Middle East, North Africa, and South Asia. A larger domestic Muslim population could reinforce these links, making Russia an even more important interlocutor for organizations like the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC. It may also strengthen its standing within the BRICS alliance, where Muslim-majority states such as Iran and potentially others play growing roles. Culturally, Russia's urban landscapes are likely to evolve with increased visibility of Islamic institutions. More mosques, Islamic schools, halal businesses, and cultural centers will emerge in cities like Moscow, Kazan, and Yekaterinburg. This will not only serve the needs of Muslim communities, but also enrich the broader cultural mosaic of Russia, creating opportunities for interfaith dialogue, tourism, and economic innovation. However, these opportunities come with challenges. Integration and social cohesion will remain critical tests. If Islamophobia, xenophobia, and heavy-handed security measures persist, the growing Muslim population could face systemic exclusion, leading to friction. Conversely, if Russia embraces inclusivity, acknowledges Islam as a central part of its heritage, and empowers Muslim communities to participate fully, the demographic transformation could strengthen the federation rather than strain it. By 2050, Islam in Russia will no longer be seen as a minority faith, but as a major pillar of society. The rise of this community will influence education, media, politics, and even Russia's sense of self on the global stage. In this sense, the future of Russia and the future of Islam within Russia are deeply intertwined. Whether that future is marked by harmony or tension will depend on the choices made today, by leaders, communities, and ordinary citizens alike. As the journey through Russia's Islamic story comes to a close, one reality becomes undeniable. Islam in Russia is not a marginal presence, nor merely a byproduct of migration. It is a faith deeply woven into the very fabric of the nation's history, culture, and identity. From the early adoption of Islam in Volga Bulgaria in the 10th century to the flourishing communities of the 21st century, the religion has endured wars, conquests, and political upheavals, yet it continues to thrive with remarkable resilience. By 2025, Russia stands as the country with the largest Muslim population in both Europe and Central Asia, estimated at between 14 and 20 million believers. This makes Russia a unique crossroads, a land where Orthodox Christianity and Islam are not opposites but long-standing neighbors, shaping each other through centuries of coexistence, rivalry, and cooperation. The sheer scale of this Muslim presence, coupled with its rich ethnic diversity, has transformed Russia into the largest Islamic hub in the wider Eurasian region. This influence is visible everywhere. In Moscow, the Grand Cathedral Mosque dominates the skyline, serving as both a place of worship and a symbol of pride for millions. In Kazan, the Kul Sharif Mosque stands not only as an architectural masterpiece, but as a statement of cultural confidence for the Tatar people. In the ancient city of Derbent, the Juma Mosque, one of the oldest in the world, links modern-day Muslims to a heritage more than 1,000 years old. These mosques are not isolated monuments. They are living institutions, filled with worshippers, scholars, and community leaders shaping the next chapter of Islamic life in Russia. Beyond architecture, the cultural heartbeat of Islam resonates in everyday life. Festivals like al-Fitr and al-Adha draw millions into collective celebration, while traditional foods, music, and clothing reflect the enduring fusion of Islamic values with local Russian and Eurasian customs. From Tatarstan's famous Chak-Chak sweets to Dagestan's mountain poetry and Chechnya's martial arts traditions, Islam's cultural imprint is unmistakable. Economically, Muslims are a driving force behind Russia's labor force and markets. The rapid expansion of the halal industry, from food production to tourism, signals how Islam is influencing consumer behavior, entrepreneurship, and trade. Migrants from Central Asia sustain vital sectors like construction, agriculture, and transport, ensuring that the Muslim presence is not just cultural, but essential to the country's development. Politically and diplomatically, Islam has become an invaluable asset. Russia's Muslim leaders, such as Grand Mufti Sheikh Rawil Ghainadin, are not only spiritual figures, but also active participants in shaping interfaith dialogue, domestic policies, and international diplomacy. The Kremlin leverages its Muslim population as a bridge to the wider Muslim world, from Turkey and Iran to the Gulf states and beyond. In organizations like the OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and BRICS, Russia positions itself as both a European power and a Muslim-majority partner, strengthening its claim to be a global mediator. Yet, this story is not without challenges. Islamophobia, stereotyping, and the security anxieties of the post-Soviet era continue to complicate integration. Events such as the tragic concert hall attack near Moscow in 2024 sparked renewed debates about migration and religious freedom, highlighting the delicate balance between security and pluralism. Still, despite these challenges, the Muslim community has shown resilience, using education, civic engagement, and cultural expression to assert its rightful place in Russian society. Looking to the future, demographic trends suggest that Muslims may comprise 1/3 of Russia's population by 2050. This growth ensures that Islam will remain central to the country's social and political evolution. Rather than being confined to minority status, Muslims in Russia will increasingly shape the national conversation, not as outsiders, but as co-architects of Russia's destiny. In this sense, Islam in Russia is more than a religion. It is a living testament to the complexity of identity in a nation that bridges East and West. From the bustling streets of Moscow to the mountains of the North Caucasus, from the scholarly halls of Kazan to the mosques of Dagestan, Islam continues to thrive, not as a foreign import but as a native, enduring, and dynamic force. Russia today is not just a country with Muslims, it is a country of Muslims. And as history unfolds, it stands proudly as the largest Islamic center in Europe and Central Asia, a hub where tradition meets modernity, and where Islam's past, present, and future are deeply intertwined with the story of Russia itself. Thanks for watching until the end. I hope it was useful. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.